Have you ever thought you could heal your own body? In other words, if you're suffering from cancer, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, fibromyalgia, and the list can go on, have you ever wondered if your emotional well-being was the cause for your physical meltdown? My next guest, Dr. Nelie Johnson, believes we can become the expert in our own healing. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Christy.
Thank you so much for being here.
Delighted to be here.
We have a lot to talk about, but first let's talk about you and your background. Since 1991, you have trained extensively in various methods of healing. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. Well, 10 years into my medical career, I realized that I didn't have the answers to why my patients were getting sick, and particularly with cancer, and why now, and why this particular type of cancer.
Now, what type of cancer are we talking about?
Any number, disease in general. I wanted to understand why people were getting sick, and I figured if I didn't know why, how could I help them?
But haven't we been trying to figure that out for hundreds of years, why people get breast cancer, especially breast cancer?
We have been looking outside for the answers, that it's some toxin, or it's this, or it's that. But in fact, what I learned and trained in was to understand that there's an underlying emotional conflict or stress or unconscious emotional wounding that fuels the disease.
So let's talk about that, because a lot of people, and there have been studies, if you will, that talk about breast cancer being caused by the foods we eat, like you just said, what's surrounding us, our environment. But you're taking a different approach now. You're saying it has to do with something that has happened to someone in the past or something within that person?
Every disease has its own signature or core emotional conflict associated with it.
Okay.
So with breast cancer, there are two main types. You have to consider them as two separate diseases.
So if someone has breast cancer, what would be their first step in trying to heal, if you will? Because we're talking about healing.
First of all, they have to step out of fear and panic. That's number one. And the way they do that is to move out of the medical mindset to appreciate the true nature of the disease, the true reason for the disease.
And the next step after that?
And the next step is to appreciate that the disease is not haphazard. It's not something that just showed up, that was bad luck or they did anything wrong. And to bring their attention to what that core conflict may be for them, how they've lived their life prior to the disease showing up.
Now, I know a lot of people with breast cancer, and I can certainly tell you that many would say right now to you, well, doctor, that sounds fine, well, and dandy, but I've looked into my past, I've never had stress, I've been a very balanced human being, and I got it.
Yeah,
so
but the body doesn't lie. There's something they're missing because it's unconscious. It's held in their unconscious, out of their awareness. So what we really are aware of is a fraction of what our subconscious is holding on to. And very often we can't sort it out ourselves. That's why we need someone, a facilitator such as myself and others who have trained in this approach, to kind of reflect questions that will bring up what they're not seeing for themselves.
Now, this is obviously very passionate for you. In fact, you were the visionary and co-organizer of the It's Time to Heal Forum in 2010. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, that was May 1st this year. My purpose was to open a dialogue between doctors, alternative practitioners, to invite an understanding of the impact of thoughts, emotions, beliefs, what I call the quantum factor or an energy factor in affecting health and well-being, and also to encourage the general public to realize that, hey, they're powerful, you know. I mean, they really are the experts in their own life. So I had Dr. Bruce Lipton attend, who delivered on the science of healing, and myself and some other practitioners delivered on the practice, some real experience of healing. Really, it is recognizing those blocks or emotional filters that are in the way of the body naturally healing itself.
And let's say you do that, and the breast cancer continues, and you've gotten past the fear and past the stress. Then?
I mean, if you've really done the work of healing, then the body heals itself. When people really engage in this work, they don't need as much treatment. I mean, I know of a number of women who, within a month of perhaps 3 or 4 sessions, cleared the emotional trauma behind a ductal or intraductal breast cancer, and it dissolved.
Really? And you've written about this in a report, which is going to come out soon. It's going to be available for free online. Right. Can you tell us about that? Because this is very interesting.
Yes, I've written a report to elaborate on some of these points, and I call it The Truth About Breast Cancer, and it really will support women to step out of fear, to discover that they can become a contributing expert on their own healthcare team. My purpose is to help them shift out of fear and engage in a healing perspective, not just in a disease management perspective. I mean, I'm not saying don't continue all your medical treatment, that, you know, whatever seems necessary, but move on, move on, take charge.
So, doctor, for someone who may have been diagnosed with breast cancer last week, today, and is frightened, what would you say?
Well, firstly, I would say don't assume the worst. Just know that you can step into a healing perspective, a healing view, and when you heal your life, you can heal your disease.
And on that note, doctor, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Great information, and I'm going to look for that report. And if you'd like to read that report as well, just go to Dr. Nelie Johnson's website, which is healingbreastcancernow.com.